Music artist, let me show you how I took his vocals from this
Somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion.
to this.
'Cause somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion.
Most people stack like 10 plugins and hope for a good sound. You're probably doing your vocals wrong, and it's not your fault. I'm an audio engineer with 150 plus 5-star mixes, with one of my clients landing an Apple Music Top 10 chart. And I'm giving you my 5-step famous vocal framework on how to get pro-sounding vocals with only stock FL plugins, even if you're recording at home. And after each step, I want to give you certified engineer pro tips that have helped me give vocals that industry standard quality, plus a free surprise at the end that I think you're really going to find useful. Okay, jumping right into the framework now, we have phase 1, which is gain staging. This is going to take your mix from 0 to 40% complete in just one phase, so it's very important. Jumping right into it, you're just going to want to start by loading in all your files. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to focus on the main vocal here, so I've dragged in the beat and my client's vocals, my boy Corey the Cool. You're going to want to kind of organize it. If you've got more files, you're going to want to kind of organize it however you deem fit, whether that's vocals in one spot, beat elements in another, and you're going to want to open up your mixer track. As you can see, I've got the playlist on one half of the screen and the mixer rack on the other half of the screen. Double click your beat and go ahead and drag that into its own mixer track. I usually do 5 just out of habit. You're going to want to right click it, rename and name it beat. And then the vocal, double click it, route it to the first insert, and we're going to name this vocal. Next up is actual gain staging, which is getting all the volumes to about the right level. So here's how we do that. You're going to go ahead and drag the vocal volume all the way down and the beat volume all the way down. And actually, I'm going to hold shift and scroll to move the beat over to the vocal just so that they're a little closer, since we're only working with those 2 files right now. We're going to want to listen to just the beat for right now. Find the loudest part of the beat. You're going to want to hold Command or Control and then click this little number up here and drag to highlight just the loudest part of the beat. Click play so that'll loop. And now we're going to slowly increase this beat knob until it's about 10 decibels right here at its loudest. See, as you can see, it's consistently hitting about 10 decibels right there. So that's the perfect sweet spot for a mix. Now we're just going to find a spot where the vocals and the beat are both very prevalent together. We're going to slowly start dragging the main vocal up until it sounds about the right level.
A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment.
Right about here kind of sounds good to my ears. And this is going to be relatively personal preference, what sounds right volume-wise for you. All right, and that is it. Phase 1 is complete. Gain staging is done. Here's your pro tip as promised after each phase. When you route each of your files into their mixer tracks, you're going to want to click this normalize button as well. This will help get everything roughly to the maximum volume that the file could be, and then you can adjust it later. And it kind of gets everything around roughly the same decibel level, around the same volume level. That being said, we're going to move on to phase 2, which is compression. This phase takes the mix from 40% to 60% complete. It can be tricky, but let's keep it simple. All right, so on the vocal, go ahead and add in the first slot, we are looking for a fruity limiter. You're going to want to go ahead and click compression because that's what we're going to be working with, and we're going to make this really simple, really visual. Go ahead and if you go to where you highlighted, where you held Command or Control and clicked and dragged, you can actually just right-click at this point to adjust where that drags, and you're going to want to kind of get most, if not all, of the main vocal recording here. And then click play and pop open your limiter. Now you can click the bottom corner and drag it to make it larger, and then scroll up on the main area to speed it up or scroll down to slow it down. I like to scroll up so that it goes a little bit faster, but not too fast that it's obnoxious to look at. You're gonna start by dragging the threshold knob down until that line is pretty much touching the tops of the quiet parts and the loud parts are going over that line. Now, starting off as a beginner, you're probably better off erring on the side of caution and lowering the threshold a little bit below the quietest parts of the vocal.
Is there a way to start again? Somewhere along that road we lost the truth, that sparking magic. I held on way too long.
So right about -19 decibels for me seems to be the sweet spot where the quiet vocals are just touching the threshold line and the loud parts are going above it. Next, you're going to want to drag the ratio, the comp ratio knob, till that top number up there says about 4 to 5. Depending on how much or how little compression you want. A compression just squashes the loud parts down to about the quiet vocal level so that it's all more cohesive in terms of volume. I like to go around 4 to 5 in the ratio, and your vocals are now compressed. Now, that being said, they're going to be quieter, so you're going to want to drag the volume knob back up, listening to the beat for reference as to how loud it should be now.
I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. Of every issue that we face.
Here's a little secret tip. After each of these phases, you're probably going to want to click File and then Save, just to make sure that everything you did still saves. FL Studio likes to crash no matter how good your computer is, no matter how new it is. FL Studio will crash on you several times in the process for seemingly no reason, and then you lose anything you did that you didn't save, so make sure you're saving frequently. And just like that, your vocals are compressed so they're not too loud and then suddenly too quiet out of nowhere. It's a nice, consistent, even volume throughout the song. Here's your pro tip as promised after this phase when it comes to compression. For rap or hip-hop vocals, you're going to want to lower your threshold a little bit lower and up your ratio a bit more for a more compressed, close, in-your-face sound. For more dynamic, a more emotional performance in something like pop or folk or something like that where you just want a little more range, you can go ahead and increase the threshold and decrease the ratio a little bit, or just adjust the knob here that chooses how much compression is being mixed in with the raw recording. All right, so phase 3 is EQ, which stands for equalizer. This is going to take your mix from 60 to 75% complete. We're getting close. EQ shapes the tone of your vocals to sit nicely with the beat. This is actually the part that most people struggle with when mixing, but let's not overthink it. Let's go ahead to our vocal track and add Fruity Parametric EQ 2. It's going to look like this. And the default setting is perfect for what we're going to do. So to start, we're going to want to get rid of some of those low 808 bassy, boomy frequencies in the vocal. You do that by right-clicking this number 1 icon, going to Type, and then doing High Pass. This is going to cut off a lot of the low frequencies. Scroll up or down to make it more harsh or less harsh of a steep cutoff. What I like to do is right-click again, go to Order, and do Steep 4. This is a more sharp cutoff of those frequencies. You're going to want to drag the 1 knob until it's about at the 80 to 90 hertz range. Next, we're going to want to bring out some breathiness and brightness in the vocal. So to do that, you're going to grab your 7 knob here, drag it back to about 4,500 to 5K hertz, and you're going to drag the 7 knob up a little bit. This is going to bring out the breathiness of the vocal, which almost always sounds good. Here's the before and after of cutting out some of the bassy frequencies and raising some of the breathiness in the vocal.
'Cause somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment.
All right, so that's a good chunk of the EQ work done, but next we're going to take it a step further. I'm going to teach you a very common EQ technique used in the mixing and mastering community, which is frequency sweeping. Hey, just real quick, wanted to let you know I mix and master for hundreds of artists, and I would love to give your mix a listen and provide some free feedback. So if that's at all helpful, click the first link in the description and send over your song. All right, back to it. So in your Fruity Parametric EQ2, you're going to take your number 2 knob here and you're going to scroll down twice. This is going to make it a bump that you can drag around here that's not too narrow. You don't want to make it too narrow like this that you're editing out, pencil thin frequencies. That's more For advanced, once you're more comfortable with the frequency range, for now you're going to want to start where it says about 24 to 29%. It's going to be a big enough frequency range that you can cut out what needs to be cut out without getting too nitty-gritty. And basically, as you play the song, you're going to listen in the vocal, you're going to slowly sweep through the song, listening for frequencies that poke out, that kind of hurt your ears, or that are sounding a little too present. When you hear that, you just take the knob where it is. That little dot that you have here on the side, you're going to drag it down, just about to that first line, right there. And then you take the next one, drag it to about 24 to 29%, sweep through. When you hear another pokey frequency, you're going to drag that bar down to about that first line. I'm going to go ahead and do that now live so you can kind of see what I'm talking about.
A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and neverness?
So right here, this is where you're going to find a lot of your mixes are going to be kind of bassy in that 100 to 200 hertz range. There's a little too much boomy bassiness to the vocal. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out a good chunk of that, and I'm going to keep listening through.
I hear it all, you pay no mind. Words collide in silence, but don't get too excited.
Again, right here at the 319 hertz range, I'm hearing a bit too much muddiness, so I'm going to go ahead and chop out a good chunk of that too. Let's keep moving.
I hear it all, you pay no mind. Words collide in silence, but don't get too excited.
Right here, there's still a bit too much. We're going to cut that out as well.
Cause somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't.
When it gets really loud here, I can really hear it kind of, it's kind of sharp, it's kind of harsh. So we're going to cut out a little bit of that there. Let's keep listening.
Imagine, how do we go from flames and fire to cold and neverness? And I'm terrified to fall down, don't know where to go now. Tell me it's alright before I fucking tear my eyes out. Told myself I'm fine, but lately I don't buy that line now. I lie awake at night and wonder why I'm still alive, dying to make amends.
So right here, I've pretty much done that, and a lot of these lower frequencies were pokey. So I used up most of my mixer knobs to cut out some of those frequencies. But what happens when you run out? All you got to do is go down to slot 3, add another fruity parametric EQ2, and start from the top.
These write songs to keep my thoughts aligned, alone and paralyzed. Issue that we fade away to start again. Not too long to things I knew would end up tragic. Words that can't be mended, caught inside this endless tension. That I could hit rewind, cause all I see is this.
So what you'll find after a couple rounds of doing this EQ frequency sweep is the vocal's going to get a little bit quieter. So typically after I've used all the mixer knobs of each parametric EQ, I will go and take this knob and raise it up just a little bit, listening to it in reference to the beat to get it back up to the right volume before I add another EQ afterwards to keep mixing.
I feel the pressure in my spine, pay no mind. Words collide in silence, but don't get too excited.
So once you're on your second parametric EQ and you want to use your 7 and your 1 knobs, what you'll notice is if you increase them, they seem to be highlighting a lot more than just a little bump. Here's how we fix that. You're going to right-click it, go to Type, and go to Peaking. Now when you scroll it down to that 21 to, well, these are going to say, different numbers, the 21 to 26 range to be able to sweep, it should look more like what you're looking for. So again, that is right-click, Type, it is Peaking.
That line now. I lie awake at night and wonder why I'm still alive. Dying of sins and tragedies, write songs to keep my thoughts aligned. But even the issue that we face, repair the cracks and heal your pain. To start again, 'cause somewhere along that road we lost the truth, that sparking magic. I held on way too long to things I knew would end up tragic. A world without you, girl, is something I.
So now one thing you may notice as you're mixing and you start doing your frequency sweep up here into the treble and the PRS range, is that the S's and the T's, those highly sibilant sounds that we make when we record, are really harsh on the ears. So we're going to want to do a technique that's called de-essing, where we're kind of cutting back on those frequencies. Here's how you do that with stock plugins that are already built into FL Studio. All right, so to get rid of some of those harsh S's, we're going to insert a slot here, and you're going to find Maximus. Go ahead and hit Enter or Return, and that should make it full screen. That's going to give us a lot of good control over those S's. You're going to click Presets, De-essing, and De-essing Narrowband. This is going to be a really good starting point. Go ahead and enable monitor with this button right here. You're going to see it kind of highlight this little square right here. If you go ahead and click that, what you're going to do is you're going to click play, and you're just going to watch to see where the S's fall in this little frequency spectrum.
Is there a way to turn back time and find a way to fix this before we lose our...
As you can see, it's right here in this 5K range. So you're going to grab the edges of this yellow-orange box here, and you're going to drag it to kind of, really hone in on where those S's are prevalent.
I feel the pressure in my spine. We live inside resistance, but you don't see no difference. I hear it all, you pay no mind. Words collide in silence, but don't get too excited. Cause somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion.
Okay, I think I've got it dialed in, so if you haven't yet, go ahead and click that box. And now you're going to want to be able to take control of this knob here. And what we're going to do with that is when you press play, you're going to see the volume of the amount of vocal signal that's going into that narrow range we just selected. You want to see kind of where that volume falls in that range.
Never listen. I feel the pressure in my spine. We live inside resistance, but you don't see.
As you can see, right about there is where the volume is hitting when it's not an S. You want to find the range. The volume is going to be different depending on whether they're just singing or whether they're saying an S or a TH or an SH, like a sh or a t sound. It's going to spike the volume. You want to ignore the spikes and look for where the volume is remaining kind of consistent when they're not making those sounds with their voice.
Never listen. I feel the pressure in my spine. We live inside resistance, but you don't see no difference. I hear it all, you pay no mind. Words
So for me, it's right about there. So you're going to drag that dot to right about where that starts. That volume starts to spike when they say S's or T's or P's.
Never listen. I feel.
Now you're going to take this little curve line and you're going to drag it way down. And this is going to be what squashes or compresses that S sound. So you're just going to want to adjust it, drag it up and down so that it still sounds natural and not like you or your artist has a speech impediment or something. But it's also, smoothing out those S's so they're not cutting through the mix in a bad way.
I feel the pressure in my spine. We live inside resistance, but you don't see no difference. I hear it all, you pay no mind. Words collide in silence, but don't get too excited. Cause somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent? I'm terrified to fall down, don't know where to go now. Tell me it's alright before I fucking tear my eyes out. Told myself I'm fine, but lately I don't buy that line now. I lie awake at night and wonder why I should these write songs to keep my thoughts aligned. Way to start again. Somewhere along that road we lost the truth, that spark and magic.
So here's where I found my sweet spot for these vocals, for Corey's vocals here. And it came from a combination of playing around with, how tall I made this dot here and how tall I dragged this dot up and down here. Just dial it in, adjust those knobs until it sounds natural, but also tames those S's a bit more. So that's pretty much all you need to know in terms of EQ mixing your vocals. Here's your pro tip after this phase as promised. After sweeping through and it sounds good in your headphones, you're going to want to switch over to speakers. You're going to want to listen to your EQ mix in as many different instruments as possible, whether that be your phone speakers, your laptop speakers, expensive dual speakers, your headphones, maybe even different headphones. You want it to overall sound fairly balanced and even no matter where you're listening to the mix from. So I almost always, once I get the EQ sounding good in my headphones, pop over to some speakers, play the song through them, and do more EQ sweeping in them, then head back to the headphones because you're going to shape it differently. And as you add more and more EQ plugins to the vocals, you're going to want to make smaller and smaller changes. You're not going to want to drag your knob down nearly as far as you start to make more changes because you're slowly dialing it in. So phase 3 complete, let's move on to phase 4, which is spatial effects. So now we get to do a little more fun creative work in the mix. This is going to take your project from 75% complete to 90%. We are so close. So what you're going to want to do is route your vocal track to a separate track, and I'll explain why you do this in a more advanced vocal video tutorial, but it's good to get in the habit of doing this now. So the way you do that is you basically click your vocal mixer track, make sure it's selected, and you're going to route it to a new track that's not being used yet by clicking this little arrow here. You should see this little knob pop up. In here, you're going to right-click it and rename it reverb or verb or whatever it is, echo, whatever you want to call it. Go to slot 1, and we're going to add Fruity Reverb 2. In Fruity Reverb 2, I can't find it. Is this some kind of fucking joke? I don't understand. Bruh, come on. Oh my god, okay. All right, in Fruity Reverb 2, you're going to want to drag the dry all the way down and the wet all the way up. So now the vocal is being sent to the reverb, but you don't want the vocal to be heard in both of these mixer tracks that we have here. Just the main one, and then we want just wet signal, which is just reverb coming from this signal. And so you're going to want to drag this down a considerable amount because we don't want the vocal to be swimming in reverb right now. And my recommendation to you now with these H cut and L cut, this is high cut and low cut knobs, is to drag this to about here and this to about here just to start off. Now you're going to hit play and you're going to listen to the reverb, and I want you to adjust the volume so that the reverb is audible, but your vocal is not just swimming in the reverb unless that's the kind of sound you're looking for. It's really just personal taste or preference at this point.
Never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and never...
One thing you can do is you can cycle through the different presets in Fruity Reverb. So there's Cathedral, which is a really big, spacious, boomy, bassy, low-end, heavy reverb. Or there's Drum Room, which is really tight, really small room. Make sure when you do cycle through the presets, you're dragging the dry knob back down so that the vocal is not doubling on you.
We lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent? I'm terrified to fall down, don't know where to go now. Tell me it's alright before I fucking tear my eyes out.
Now that I've got a preset that I'm comfortable with, I'm going to turn the reverb volume all the way down and slowly increase it until it sounds just right.
Somewhere along that road, we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames?
And then in Fruity Reverb, you can adjust this is how much high frequency or breathiness you're going to let into the EQ, and this is how much low frequency or bassy, low ends in the vocals you're going to hear in the reverb, kind of like the EQ. So you can tweak and adjust that to your personal preference. That's pretty much all you got to do to get that, echoey, reverby sound. Here's a little pro tip for you that almost all advanced engineers use. If you add in another slot, Fruity Limiter, just like we use to compress the vocals, and you go to compression mode, you right-click sidechain and you click vocal because you have vocal routed into there. What you'll see when you hit play is the main vocal going into the reverb. You drag the threshold line so that it's the peaks go over it, and then the lows of the vocal, or where the vocal's not present, it dips below that line. And then you adjust the ratio accordingly. It will actually duck the audio of the reverb while the vocal is present. This is beneficial because when you want heavy reverbs, when you want it to sound really open and spacious, you're going to want to duck some of that reverb volume while the vocal is present, because you don't want the reverb to clash or interfere with the vocal at all. You want to make space for a nice clean vocal sound, and then once the vocal is done, it echoes out, it rings out, it reverbs out.
Tell me it's alright.
And up here you can see how much of that reverb is being ducked by the vocal.
Somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and...
Now, for many hip-hop songs especially, go to another mixer track insert, rename it to delay, route your vocal to the delay mixer track now. You're going to look for Fruity Delay 3. And here you're going to do the same as the reverb, where you drag the dry all the way down and the wet should be all the way up. And when you click play, you're going to hear immediately what Fruity Delay does.
Never,
This is a lot easier of a tool to use if you have your BPM set to what the beat and the song was recorded at. But basically, you use this time knob and you drag it to set the timing of the delay, how quickly the delay kicks in. So I'll drag it down here to get it timed up properly. Level is how many times it repeats. So time is how fast it repeats the vocal. Level is how many times or how long it repeats the vocal. So I like to turn that down to right about here.
I'm
going to turn it down. You can make it sound a little more distant or far in the back by dragging this cutoff down.
We go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent. Terrified to fall down.
I still think it's echoing too much, so I'm going to drag the level down a little bit. And again, these are what you're going to want to play with yourself. And when you do delay, you're especially going to want to do that limiter trick where we duck the audio of the delay while the vocal is present. So I'm going to do that now. Remember, go to compression, right-click, vocal, click play.
Somewhere along that road,
drag the threshold down. I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger.
A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent? Terrified to fall down, don't know where to go.
On delay, I like to make this limiter a little harsher, this compression a little harsher, so that when the vocal's present, you're not hearing any more echoes or delays. You only hear the delay when the vocal is not there is ideally how this would work. But you also don't want it to sound like super compressed. It can sound weird if you go a little too hard with it. So let's work on dialing it in with the threshold and ratio knob.
Somewhere along that road, we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. Somewhere along that road, we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent? Terrified to fall down.
And then it also helps to, mute the delay and slowly raise it up while listening to the song to know kind of where the right level should be when the vocal is not present. So let's do that now.
Don't know where to go now. Tell me it's alright before I fucking tear my eyes out. Somewhere along that road, we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart.
When you have a really big, echoey, spacious song, it also helps to add reverb directly to your delay, ideally the large hall one. That'll sound like this.
Somewhere along that road, we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A word with.
I'm gonna dial back on the reverb a little bit so it's not super echoey. But that's kind of around the sound I like. And to be honest with you, I don't need that much delay to be present throughout this whole song. So I'm gonna dial this delay back quite a bit so that it's a very subtle background element to the mix.
Can't imagine, how do we go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent?
Now, if I wanted to, I could actually extend the time quite a bit, extend the time it takes before it echoes, which could affect the entire sound and feel of the mix and of the song. So let's try that now.
Somewhere along that road, we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. A world without you, girl, is something I just can't imagine. How do we go from flames and fire to cold and evanescent? I'm terrified to fall down, don't know where to go now. Tell me it's alright before I fucking tear my eyes out. Terrified to fall down, don't know where to go now.
Here's another pro tip for you with the spatial effects. This knob right here is mono and stereo. Mono is as narrow as the recording can be, and stereo is as wide. It sounds like it's all the way out here in your headphones. What you usually want to happen with your spatial effects is you want them to be a little wider than the vocals. You want the vocals here, and then all the spatial effects kind of out here. I would highly recommend dragging these knobs down a good amount to give them a more open, spacious sound. All right, so that concludes phase 4, which was the more creative spatial effects like reverb and delay and how to make sure that those don't interfere with the vocal too much. It leaves space for a clean vocal sound while also feeling wide and dynamic. The fifth and final phase is mastering. This is getting the song loud and ready for streaming. So the best thing to do is to export the song completely as a separate file. So we're going to call this Evanescence Mixed. Now we're going to open a new project, and you're going to drag your mixed file in, route it to mixer track number 1, call it Mix or whatever the song title is, whatever you choose. This is where an external plugin like Paz Analyzer that looks like this, where Paz Analyzer comes in handy. But if you don't have an external plugin you like to use that kind of shows you the frequency range, I'll kind of show you what it does here.
Told myself I'm fine, but lately I don't buy that line now. I lie awake at night and wonder why I'm still alive.
As you can see, it kind of shows you where the frequencies are falling in the mix. If you don't have one of those, don't worry about it. You're just going to basically listen to the song at some of its loudest points, right? So for me, that's right about here the song is loudest. You're going to add an EQ, just like we've done before, and you're going to do the frequency sweep method, where you're going to kind of listen to all of the elements at play, not just the vocal. So the vocal with the beat. Any parts that poke out to you, you're going to want to decrease just a little bit. That's what we'll do before we move on to the next step of making it loud. You really want to make relatively gentle adjustments here. When you get a little more used to it, a little more comfortable with it, you can start making sharper, steeper changes, but ultimately the master is not really making any big major changes. This is just getting it overall polished up and cohesive. So especially when you're starting out, you're going to want to make really small adjustments to the master especially, until you get a little more comfortable with it. All right, and once you kind of swept through and cut out some of the places where both the beat and the vocal together create some harsher frequencies, what you're going to do is you're going to open Maximus back up, the thing that we used to de-ess the project. You're going to go back to the presets, If you go to mastering, you're going to go to Clear Master RMS. This is a really good plug-and-play system for beginners here. I even still use this preset quite often. So you're going to want to listen to it with these pre-built settings. If you click low, you can adjust with the pre-knob how loud the lows are in the song. Mid is those mid-range frequencies. This is going to be kind of where your vocal sits. And then highs, these are the hi-hats and the higher frequency elements that you can adjust again with the pre-knob here. Once you've adjusted all those to sound kind of where you'd like those levels, go to the master and you're going to adjust the post knob on the master until you see the peaks of the song hitting the top of this blue line here. And that's going to start compressing it. You want to compress the master just a little bit so that it doesn't sound super compressed when the volume is relatively low. But you also do want it to kind of take some of those quieter parts of the song and raise them, and some of the louder parts of the song and quiet them. And that's kind of what this setting does. So let's do that and dial in that sound.
Now, no, I don't buy that line now. I would rather die than live a life that's just a lie now.
I feel like I'm missing some lows here, so I'm going to increase some of the lows here. And it's a little too breathy in my ear, so I'm going to decrease just a little bit of the highs and turn my volume down. As you crank the master post knob, you're going to want to turn your headphone volume down because you don't want the loudness of the song to skew the overall sound. In fact, you should be mixing at a relatively quiet volume. Our brains love the sound of things when they're louder, so you want to make sure the song sounds good at a low volume because the louder it gets, the better it's going to sound naturally to us.
Now, no, I don't buy that now.
I'm hearing a little distortion when he hits that high note. As you can see, that's where it's peaking here. You don't want it to distort, so maybe adding some low end was a bit too much. So I want to dial back on the low end a little bit, maybe dial back even the mids because the vocal's kind of crunching the sound. And then you're going to want to dial back on the master if it starts to distort or starts to crunch a little bit.
Now, no, I don't buy that line now. I would rather die than live a life that's just a lie now.
And it can be beneficial to kind of hear other parts of the song that are loud too, not just the loudest parts. So you can kind of see if that compression is bringing up the volume and then cutting some of those super loud parts and how that sounds in different parts of the song.
Somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment.
So once you've got the song loud by tweaking that post knob, so that it doesn't sound too overly compressed, but it's also bringing the low ends up and the high parts down, you're pretty much done. All you got to do is file, export as a WAV file, name your file, and your song is completely mixed and mastered. You should now have a much more polished and professional sounding song without needing a crazy degree in audio engineering.
Somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment. Cause somewhere along that road we lost our way, our love and passion. I never thought we'd end up torn apart by shared attachment.
Now look, if you were following along and you want me personally to listen to your mix and master to give you some helpful pointers and tips, feel free to click that first link in the description. Click that link, send me your song, and I would be happy to give it a listen and give you some helpful pointers.